If you and I were making small talk at a reunion, and I told you that a friend we had in high school dropped out of college, you'd probably be thinking, oh, well, that's a bummer. But why is that? We all know that higher education isn't for everyone. And not continuing your education in traditional fashion isn't necessarily bad. In fact, at least in the US, more people don't have a degree than do. So clearly there's some process us as humans are going through that develops a negative stereotype. Stereotypes. I mean, we all have them. But that leads to the next logical question, that is, why do we all have stereotypes? It's not like we got a meeting one day and decided we're going to have them. The simplest answer is the basic need for the human species to generate offspring. As primates, we are wired to make assumptions and predictions about people based solely off of their gender and age. This ability evolved so that we could determine the most capable mate. We quite literally cannot not judge someone, even if we try not to. We can see this by going to the nearest thing we have to an unaffected sample set of humans. Children. Now, children are great. Great's a strong word, but they're great because they're so cute and naive. And perhaps more importantly, they haven't developed the ability to discriminate on a number of factors. In fact, the only factors they can and do discriminate upon without external intervention is gender and age. Of course, children aren't completely unaware of race and ethnicity. They just don't pay attention to it because they weren't programmed to. And neither were we, because without some external intervention, race and ethnicity really have no bearing as to who someone is. In other words, there's only correlation between the two because of existing systems. There is no causation between someone's race and who they are as a person. The human brain is designed to find patterns because it helps simplify things for us. Simplicity. The human brain isn't very good at taking many complex variables and getting one solution. So it simplifies everything it can. This also leads to some quality of life improvements that we often take for granted. Stereotypes are not mysterious or arbitrary, but they are grounded in the observations of everyday life. For example, red is a color that indicates urgency. It's not like it's necessarily significantly different from blue or green, but our brains have developed a pattern that causes red to trigger a more immediate response. Perhaps we accidentally cut ourselves accidentally. Red alert is often used in Star Trek and other shows because of this urgency. Everyone gets it right away. Red is bad, I need to react. Airplane doors have red labeling on them for a reason, because it triggers this immediate response. But our brains try to find patterns in everything, even when they really shouldn't. For example, this image here. It's a simple optical illusion. You've probably all seen this before at some point. We see triangles, but there isn't any triangle in the image at all. In fact, I'd say there's a distinct lack of triangles. And yet we interpret the absence of something as the presence of the same something. You might see 2 large triangles, 3 small triangles, or maybe both at the same time. But there aren't any triangles no matter how hard you look. Our brains are also terrible at pattern recognition. You simply can't judge somebody based off of how they look, speak, or act. Because while there is a possibility it can be correct, it's probably not. Discrimination is based in the concept of pattern recognition. It's our brains trying to simplify something it can't. If our brains see many college dropouts working as fast food cooks or another job that we deem as unpleasant, then we're more likely to associate dropping out of college with failure. And that's not necessarily true. Racial discrimination is often justified by pointing out studies that show a majority of workers in a certain occupation are of a particular race, when this really only proves the fact that stereotypes are based off of existing systems. We make assumptions about people off something that they can't control, or perhaps more importantly, has no causation to anything meaningful at all. There's only correlation. Perhaps a very dramatic example of this was a study done prior to the 2008 presidential election here in the US, where social psychologists looked at which the extent the candidates were associated with America. For the study, America was defined as the unconscious association with the American flag. For the first set, they compared Barack Obama and John McCain. Perhaps predictably, if you know anything about John McCain, McCain was thought of as more American than Obama. However, for the second set, they compared Barack Obama to Tony Blair, who was the British Prime Minister at the time. And they found that Blair was thought of as more American than Obama. Now, I'm going to let you unpack that for yourself and draw your own conclusions, but that is striking. Perhaps there's nothing more important, more human, than the duality of prejudice and reasoning. We are capable of rational thought, but our nature always brings us back to discrimination and prejudice, even when we try to avoid this. We can do what we can to minimize the unwanted parts of ourselves, but we can never eliminate them. Thank you for watching. There will be a works cited list down in the description. Thank you for your time.